I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable at first, but stay with me because this truth will set you free. Right now, as you hear these words, there are two versions of 2026 already existing. In one version, you are living the life you dream about when you close your eyes at night, the one you're almost afraid to admit you want. In the other version, you are repeating 2024 and 2025 all over again, wearing the same worries, speaking the same complaints, living in the same patterns. And here is what most people will never understand. The version you experience has already been chosen. Not by fate, not by luck, not by the universe randomly picking your name out of a cosmic hat. It was chosen by your subconscious mind, and that choice was made weeks, maybe months ago. The year doesn't begin on January 1st. It begins in the invisible realm of thought, in the quiet moments when you weren't even paying attention, when you were simply thinking, assuming, expecting. Your subconscious has been writing the script of your next year while you were busy scrolling, worrying, and waiting for things to change. But what if I told you that you can rewrite that script right now? What if the power to reset everything, to choose the other version, to step into a completely different 2026, is not only possible but simple? Not easy, but simple. That is what we are going to do together. Not next week, not after you feel ready. Right now, because your subconscious is listening, and it does not know the difference between a deeply imagined experience and a real one. This is not theory. This is not wishful thinking. This is the most practical, mechanical, magnificent law I have ever encountered in my decades of studying the mind, and I am going to show you exactly how to use it. Let me be clear about what I am offering you in the next hour or so that we spend together. This is not motivation that fades by tomorrow morning. This is not a list of affirmations you repeat without belief. What I am giving you is a complete subconscious reset, a method so precise that when you apply it correctly, your outer world must rearrange itself to match your inner convictions. I have seen this work in thousands of lives. I have watched people shift from poverty to abundance, from sickness to health, from loneliness to love, not through struggle or force, but through understanding one simple principle. Your subconscious mind is the master architect of your experience, and it builds exactly what you instruct it to build through your habitual thinking and feeling. Most people are giving their subconscious the same instructions year after year, living in a mental loop, wondering why nothing changes. They set goals in January and by February they have forgotten them, not because they lack discipline, but because they never impress those goals upon the subconscious with feeling and repetition. They never actually planted the seed. They just wished for the harvest. But you are different. You are here, and that is not an accident. Something in you knows there is more available. Something in you is ready to stop being a passive observer of your life and become the conscious creator you were always meant to be. So here is what we are going to do together. First, I am going to show you exactly how your subconscious created everything you are currently experiencing, the good and the challenging, so you understand the mechanism. Then I am going to share with you the stories of real people who used this law to transform their circumstances in ways that seemed impossible. After that, I will give you the fundamental lessons you must understand to work with your subconscious effectively. And finally, I will walk you through the exact practice, the precise technique, to impress your desires upon your subconscious mind so powerfully that 2026 becomes the year everything changes. Not because of external circumstances, but because you changed internally first. Sound good? Then let us begin. Before we go any further, I want you to understand something that will probably go against everything you have been taught. You are not a small, powerless person in a big, random world, hoping things work out. You are a creative center of consciousness, and you are creating your experience every single day through the images and feelings you habitually entertain in your mind. This is not philosophy. This is not poetry. This is mechanical law, as reliable as gravity. Your subconscious mind is like the soil of a garden. It does not judge the seeds you plant. It does not say, this is a good seed and this is a bad seed, so I will grow this one and reject that one. It simply accepts what you plant and grows it into your experience. If you plant worry, you harvest situations to worry about. If you plant lack, you harvest experiences of not having enough. If you plant the feeling of being unloved, you harvest loneliness. But if you plant abundance, health, love, and success with deep feeling and conviction, Your subconscious will move heaven and earth to bring those things into your reality. This is not magic. This is how your mind works. And the tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives planting weeds and then praying for roses. They saturate their consciousness with fear while asking for courage. They imagine failure while hoping for success. They feel unworthy while wanting love. And then they wonder why the law does not work for them. But it is working. It is always working. It is just working in reverse because they are using it backwards. Your subconscious does not care what you want consciously. It only responds to what you feel and assume to be true, repeatedly. This is why positive thinking alone does not work. You can say 1,000 affirmations, but if underneath those words you feel unworthy, broke, or stuck, your subconscious will ignore the words and respond to the feeling. Feeling is the secret. Feeling is the language your subconscious understands. Not the emotion of excitement that comes and goes, but the deep inner knowing, the assumption, the state of consciousness where you feel it is already done. Now I know some of you are thinking, but Joseph, you don't understand my situation. You don't know how bad things are. You don't know how long I've been stuck. You don't know what I've been through. And you are right. I do not know your specific story. But I do know the law. And the law does not care about your story. That might sound harsh, but it is actually the most liberating truth you will ever hear. Your past does not determine your future unless you keep bringing it into your present through your thoughts. The law is no respecter of persons. It works the same for everyone, regardless of age, education, background, or circumstances. I have seen a man with no formal education build a fortune because he believed he could. I have seen a woman heal from a diagnosis that doctors said was permanent because she refused to accept it as her reality. I have seen people in their 70s create the love, health, and purpose they thought they had missed forever. Why? Because they stopped arguing for their limitations and started impressing new beliefs upon their subconscious mind. They stopped being loyal to their problems and became loyal to their possibilities. And that is what I am asking you to do. Not to deny your current reality, but to stop giving it all your mental and emotional energy, to stop rehearsing it, justifying it, and identifying with it. Because every time you say, I am broke, I am sick, I am alone, you are instructing your subconscious to continue creating that experience. You are wearing those states like a costume, and your subconscious is saying, oh, this is who we are. Let me make sure we stay this way. But the moment you start saying, I am abundant, I am healthy, I am loved, and you feel it is true, even before you see evidence, you are giving your subconscious a new set of instructions. You are stepping into a new costume, a new state, and your subconscious will begin to harden that state into fact. Let me tell you about a woman named Helen. She came to one of my lectures many years ago, and after the event she approached me with tears in her eyes. She said, Dr. Murphy, I have been trying to change my life for 10 years. I have read all the books. I have done all the techniques. I have prayed and affirmed and visualized, and nothing has changed. I am still in debt. I am still alone. I am still struggling. What am I doing wrong? So I asked her a simple question. I said, Helen, when you visualize and affirm, how do you feel? She paused for a long time and then she said something that broke my heart and explained everything. She said, I feel hopeful that maybe one day it will happen. And there it was. The problem was not her technique. The problem was her consciousness. She was trying to get something she did not have. She was affirming from a state of lack, from a consciousness of wanting, of hoping, of waiting. And so her subconscious kept creating more wanting, more hoping, more waiting. I told her, Helen, you must stop trying to get what you want and start living from the feeling of already having it, not pretending, not faking it, but actually entering into the state of the wish fulfilled, where you feel so satisfied, so complete, so grateful that it has already happened, that your outer world has no choice but to conform. She looked at me like I was speaking another language, but something in her understood. She went home that night and instead of doing her usual routine of begging and pleading with the universe, she lay in her bed and imagined a scene that implied her wish was fulfilled. She imagined opening her bank statement and seeing a balance that made her feel free and secure. She did not try to figure out how it would happen. She just felt the relief, the freedom, the joy of it being done. She did this every night for 3 weeks, sometimes falling asleep in that feeling. And then something extraordinary happened. She received a phone call from a lawyer informing her that a distant relative she barely knew had passed away and left her a substantial inheritance. Money she had no idea existed. Money that solved her financial problems and gave her the freedom she had been desperately chasing for a decade. Was this coincidence? Was this luck? No. This was law. This was her subconscious mind, impressed with a new belief, rearranging her outer world to match her inner conviction. Now some of you might hear that story and think, well, that's nice for Helen, but that kind of thing doesn't happen to me. And that belief right there, that assumption, is precisely why it has not happened to you yet. You see, the law is impersonal. It does not play favorites, but it does respond to belief. If you believe you are the exception, if you believe you are unlucky, if you believe good things happen to other people but not to you, then your subconscious says, your wish is my command, and it creates experiences that confirm that belief. You are not a victim of the law. You are using the law perfectly to create exactly what you believe to be true about yourself and your life. And the beautiful, terrifying, magnificent truth is that you can change that belief right now, not tomorrow. Not when you feel more confident, not when your circumstances improve. Right now, because your subconscious does not operate in time. It only knows now. When you impress a new belief upon it with feeling and persistence, it begins to work immediately, behind the scenes, in ways you cannot see, orchestrating events, arranging meetings, inspiring ideas, and opening doors. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to define what you want, assume it is already yours, and feel the reality of it until your subconscious accepts it as true. That is the reset. That is the key. That is the difference between people who transform their lives and people who keep repeating the same year over and over. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this. What story have you been telling yourself about 2026? Not the story you tell other people, the one you whisper to yourself late at night, the one running in the background of your mind like a soundtrack you have stopped noticing. Is it a story of limitation or possibility? Is it a story of fear or faith? Is it a story where things finally work out? Or is it a story where you are still waiting, still struggling, still stuck? Because that story, that inner narrative, is the blueprint your subconscious is using to construct your experience. And most people do not realize they are telling themselves a story at all. They think they are just observing reality. But you are never just observing. You are always interpreting, assuming, expecting, and those interpretations become instructions. Your subconscious does not distinguish between what is happening and what you believe is happening. It simply responds to your dominant mental attitude. So if you walk around feeling like life is hard, people are difficult, money is scarce, and opportunities are rare, your subconscious will filter your perception and guide your actions in ways that prove those beliefs correct. You will notice the problems and miss the solutions. You will feel the rejection and overlook the open doors. Not because the solutions and opportunities are not there, but because your consciousness is tuned to a different frequency. It is like having a radio locked on a station that plays sad songs and then wondering why you never hear anything uplifting. You have to change the station. You have to change your inner narrative. You have to tell yourself a different story. One where you're already free, already abundant, already whole. This is not fantasy. This is not pretending. This is recognizing the truth at a higher level than your senses can perceive. You see, your physical circumstances are nothing but the hardened facts of yesterday's thinking. They are old news. They are the printout of what you previously believed. But your imagination is the preview of what's coming. It's the workshop where tomorrow is being built right now, in this very moment. I've seen people transform their entire lives by changing nothing but their inner conversations. A woman once came to me, drowning in debt, relationships shattered, health declining. She said, "Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything." And I told her what I'm telling you. You haven't tried changing the voice in your head. You haven't tried assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. You haven't tried living from the end result instead of from your current limitation. She began a simple practice. Every night before sleep, instead of rehearsing her problems, she would imagine a friend congratulating her. She would hear the words, "I'm so happy for you." Everything turned around. She would feel the embrace, the warmth, the reality of it. She didn't focus on how it would happen. She didn't strategize or scheme. She simply felt it as done. Within months, opportunities appeared that she couldn't have orchestrated with 1,000 years of planning. The debt resolved through unexpected channels. A relationship healed that she thought was permanently broken. Her health improved as the stress that had been poisoning her body lifted. Was it magic? No. It was law. Mental law. The law of assumption that governs your inner world and subsequently shapes your outer world. You must understand something fundamental. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It does not debate. It simply accepts what you persistently think and feel as true, and then it moves heaven and earth to make it your reality. It's like a faithful servant who says, "Your wish is my command," to whatever you predominantly believe. So when you constantly tell yourself you're struggling, you're unlucky, you're blocked, your subconscious says, "Absolutely, let me create more of that for you." But when you begin to tell yourself, with feeling, with conviction, that you are blessed, guided, and abundant, your subconscious responds with equal loyalty. Yes. Let me show you evidence of that truth. This is why affirmations aren't just positive thinking, they're not superficial platitudes you paste over your pain. True affirmations are commands issued from a place of faith and feeling directly into the operating system of your mind. When you say, "I am divinely guided in all my ways," and you feel it, you sense it resonate in your chest, in your being, you are literally reprogramming the mechanism that controls your experience of life. Now, I want to address something important here. Many people try affirmations and claim they don't work. They say the words once or twice, feel foolish, see no immediate change, and abandon the practice entirely. This is like planting a seed, watering it once, and then digging it up the next day to complain it hasn't become a tree. Your subconscious mind requires repetition, feeling, and acceptance. It learns through consistent impression, not casual suggestion. Think of it this way. You didn't develop your current limiting beliefs overnight. If you believe money is hard to come by, that belief was built through years of repeated thoughts, observations, and emotional reinforcements. Perhaps you heard your parents fight about bills. Perhaps you experienced lack during formative years. Perhaps society told you again and again that life is a struggle. These impressions accumulated, layered upon each other, until they became the foundation of your subconscious programming. To change that foundation, you must be equally persistent with your new beliefs. You must saturate your mind with the truth you wish to experience. This doesn't happen with a half-hearted attempt. It happens when you make it a practice, a ritual, a discipline of consciousness. Morning and evening, before sleep and upon waking, these are the most powerful times because your subconscious is most receptive when you're in that drowsy, borderline state between waking and sleeping. In that twilight zone of consciousness, your critical mind, that stubborn gatekeeper that argues with every positive suggestion, steps aside. The door to your subconscious swings wide open. This is when your affirmations sink deepest, when your mental images become impressed most vividly upon that receptive inner mind. I've witnessed countless individuals transform their entire financial reality by doing nothing more than spending 10 minutes each morning and each night in this sacred practice. 10 minutes. Not hours of grueling effort, not complex rituals. Just 10 focused minutes of impressing your desire upon your subconscious mind. But here's what most people miss. You must do this with feeling. Emotion is the language your subconscious understands best. You can repeat "I am wealthy" 10,000 times with the emotional intensity of reading a phone book, and you'll get nowhere. But say it once, just once, with deep conviction, with the feeling of wealth already being yours, and you've planted a seed that must grow. Think of it this way. Your subconscious mind is like rich, fertile soil. Your thoughts are seeds. But emotion is the water that makes those seeds germinate and grow. Without emotion, you're planting dry seeds in dry soil. Nothing happens. Add the water of feeling, and suddenly everything comes alive. So, when you affirm your prosperity, don't just say the words. Feel them. Feel the relief of financial security. Feel the joy of abundance. Feel the gratitude of having more than enough. Let these feelings wash over you completely. Let them become real in your body, in your heart, in every cell of your being. Your subconscious cannot tell the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined with emotion. This is not theory, this is proven fact. When you imagine yourself wealthy with genuine feeling, Your subconscious accepts this as reality and immediately begins working to make your outer world conform to this inner conviction. And here's something remarkable. The moment you truly accept wealth in consciousness, before you've seen a single dollar manifest, your entire vibration changes. You walk differently. You talk differently. You make different decisions. You notice opportunities you walked past 100 times before. This is why people around you start commenting on the change before you're even fully aware of it yourself. Your spouse says, "You seem different lately." Your colleague asks, "What's gotten into you?" They're picking up on the shift in your energy, the subtle alterations in how you carry yourself through the world. And here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. This is about becoming who you've always been beneath the layers of doubt and limitation. The subconscious mind doesn't create a new you, it reveals the authentic you that's been buried under years of conditioning. Think about a child before the world tells them what they can't do. They're fearless. They believe they can be astronauts, artists, healers, leaders. That belief isn't naivete, it's the natural state of the human mind before it's programmed with limitation. What we're doing here is a process of deprogramming, of returning to that original state of possibility, but now with the wisdom and capability of your adult self. Now, I want to address something that stops many people right at the threshold of transformation. They begin this process, they start impressing new beliefs onto their subconscious, and then they make a fatal error. They start watching for results with desperation. They wake up each morning and immediately scan their reality for evidence. Is it here yet? Has anything changed? Where's my manifestation? This kind of anxious observation is like planting a seed and digging it up every day to check if it's growing. You destroy the very thing you're trying to nurture. The subconscious mind works in its own time. It has access to paths and possibilities you cannot consciously perceive. When you plant a command in your subconscious through feeling and repetition, you must then release it. You must trust the process the way you trust that your heart will beat while you sleep, that your food will digest without your conscious intervention. This is where faith enters the picture, not religious faith necessarily, but faith in the lawful operation of your own mind. You don't anxiously wonder whether gravity will work tomorrow. You trust it implicitly. The same certainty must be applied to the laws of your subconscious mind. This is the foundation upon which all lasting change is built. When you operate from certainty rather than hope, when you proceed from conviction rather than mere desire, the subconscious has no choice but to respond. Think of it this way. When you plant a seed in fertile soil, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You don't stand over it with doubt and skepticism, questioning whether nature knows what to do. You plant it, water it, give it sunlight, and then you let the intelligence of nature take over. You trust the process completely. The same principle applies to the seeds you plant in your subconscious mind. When you impress an idea upon it with feeling and faith, you must then release it. You must let go of the anxious questioning, the constant checking, the fearful monitoring. This doesn't mean you become passive or lazy. It means you move forward with quiet confidence, knowing that the creative power within you is already at work. I've seen people sabotage their own prayers and affirmations by immediately following them with doubt. They'll affirm abundance in the morning, then spend the afternoon worrying about bills. They'll visualize health before bed, then wake up obsessing over symptoms. This divided mind, this double-mindedness, cancels out the positive impression you're trying to make. The Bible speaks of this when it says, "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." You cannot serve two masters. You cannot impress your subconscious with success while simultaneously feeding it fear of failure. One will dominate, and typically, it's the emotion that carries the most intensity. Here's what I want you to understand deeply. Your subconscious mind is completely impersonal. It doesn't judge whether your thoughts are good or bad, constructive or destructive. It simply accepts what you give it and sets about making it real in your experience. It's like the soil that grows both the beautiful flower and the poisonous weed with equal commitment. This is why awareness is so crucial. You must become a guardian of your inner garden. You must learn to recognize the thoughts you're entertaining throughout the day, the emotions you're dwelling upon, the conversations you're replaying in your mind. Every single one of these mental activities is an instruction to your subconscious. When you worry, you're instructing your subconscious to create more circumstances that justify worry. When you feel grateful, you're instructing it to bring you more experiences that justify gratitude. When you rehearse failure in your mind, you're programming failure into your future. When you visualize success with feeling, you're programming success. This is why I've always insisted that you must never, under any circumstances, use your imagination against yourself. Your imagination is the workshop where your future is being constructed right now, in this very moment. And what are you building there? A palace or a prison? I've watched people torture themselves with their own creative faculties. They possess this magnificent power, this ability to picture things that don't yet exist, and they use it exclusively to preview disaster. They imagine the worst possible outcome in every situation. They rehearse rejection. They visualize loss. They create detailed mental movies of everything going wrong, and then they wonder why their life seems to be a continuous stream of problems and setbacks. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you imagine something with sufficient sensory detail and emotional intensity, your subconscious accepts it as fact. It begins to organize your thoughts, your perceptions, your behaviors, and even your circumstances around this accepted fact. This is the secret behind what some call acting as if. When you begin to think from the end result, when you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you're not engaging in some empty pretense. You're not lying to yourself. You're actually instructing your subconscious mind in the language it understands best, the language of images and feelings. I recall a woman who came to me years ago, desperate because she had been trying to manifest prosperity for months without success. She had been affirming abundance, visualizing wealth, doing everything she thought was right, but nothing was changing. When I questioned her more deeply, the truth emerged. Yes, she was doing her affirmations in the morning, but throughout the rest of her day, she was constantly checking her bank balance with anxiety, paying her bills with resentment, seeing expensive items with envy, and talking to her friends about how difficult everything was financially. Her conscious affirmations were being completely neutralized by her habitual thoughts and feelings. It was like trying to fill a bathtub while the drain was wide open. She was putting positive thoughts in through one small opening while negative thoughts were flooding out through a dozen others. I explained to her what I'm explaining to you now. Your affirmations must saturate your consciousness. They cannot be isolated moments in an otherwise contradictory mental landscape. You cannot affirm abundance for 10 minutes in the morning and then spend the remaining 16 waking hours dwelling in lack. You cannot declare health while constantly discussing your symptoms with everyone you meet. You cannot claim confidence while your inner dialogue continuously tears you down. This is why I teach that living in the end is not just about morning and evening sessions, though these are important. It's about maintaining the mental equivalent of your desire throughout your day. It's about disciplining your mind moment by moment. When a contradictory thought arises, you must catch it immediately and redirect it. When anxiety appears, you must replace it with faith. When doubt whispers, you must answer with certainty. This requires vigilance. I won't pretend otherwise. In the beginning, you may find yourself correcting your thinking dozens or even hundreds of times per day. Your mind has grooves worn deep by years of habitual thinking. These patterns don't disappear overnight. But with persistence, the new patterns become stronger. The positive thoughts become more automatic. The mental discipline becomes easier. I told this woman to create what I call checkpoints throughout her day. Every time she looked at her phone, every time she opened her wallet, every time she paid for something, she should use that moment as a reminder to return to her desired state. Instead of checking her bank balance with anxiety, she should mentally thank her subconscious for the abundance flowing to her. Instead of paying bills with resentment, she should pay them with gratitude that she has the resources to do so. This shift in perspective wasn't about pretending or lying to herself. It was about recognizing that every financial transaction, every moment of awareness about money, was an opportunity to program her subconscious mind. Most people use these moments to reinforce their poverty consciousness. They see a bill and think, I can barely afford this. They see a price tag and think, that's too expensive for someone like me. They check their bank balance and think, I'll never have enough. But Sarah learned to use these same moments differently. When she paid her rent, instead of thinking, there goes another chunk of my meager salary, she thought, I'm grateful I can provide beautiful shelter for myself. When she saw something expensive she wanted, instead of thinking I can't afford that, she thought, that's coming to me as my income grows. When she checked her bank balance, instead of calculating what she lacked, She appreciated what she had and visualized what was coming. This practice required vigilance at first. The old mental habits were deeply ingrained. Her automatic response to money situations had been programmed over years, perhaps decades, but she persisted. And something remarkable began to happen. Within 3 weeks, Sarah received an unexpected email. A former colleague had started a consulting firm and remembered her expertise in a particular software system. Would she be interested in some freelance work? The pay was nearly double her hourly rate at her current job. Sarah accepted immediately, and here's where the story takes an important turn. Many people would have received this opportunity and thought, well, that's nice, but it's just a coincidence. They would have taken the work but returned immediately to their old state of lack consciousness. Sarah didn't make this mistake. She recognized this opportunity as the first fruit of her mental work. She accepted it with gratitude but without surprise. This is crucial. She didn't treat it as a lucky break or a random occurrence. She treated it as the natural consequence of her new mental state. This reinforced her faith in the process and deepened her conviction. And this is crucial to understand. When you recognize success as the natural result of your inner work rather than luck, you multiply its power tenfold. You're not surprised by it. You're not wondering if it will last. You expect it, welcome it, and no more is coming. Most people sabotage their own manifestations by treating them as flukes. They get what they wanted, then immediately think, wow, I can't believe that happened. That was so lucky. It probably won't happen again. And guess what? It doesn't. Because they've just impressed their subconscious with doubt and disbelief instead of certainty and expectation. Sarah did the opposite. Every positive development became evidence that her inner world was shaping her outer world. This created a magnificent upward spiral where faith produced results, and results deepened faith, which produced greater results, which deepened faith even further. Within 3 months, her entire financial situation had transformed, not through lottery wins or inheritances, but through a series of natural, logical opportunities that flowed from her changed state of consciousness. A client referred her to someone who offered her a consulting contract. She discovered she'd been underpaid for years and negotiated a substantial raise. She found a better apartment at lower rent. Small expenses she'd worried about simply didn't materialize or resolve themselves easily. But here's what amazed her most. She realized she'd been wealthy in consciousness before a single dollar appeared. The peace, the confidence, the sense of security, these came first, while she was still in the same financial situation. The money followed the feeling, not the other way around. This is the secret that eludes most people. They're waiting for the money to feel wealthy, waiting for the relationship to feel loved, waiting for the achievement to feel confident. They have the entire process backwards. You must become it in consciousness first. You must feel it, live it, breathe it in your imagination before it appears in your world. This isn't pretending. This isn't positive thinking. This is impressing your subconscious mind with the state you wish to experience and allowing it to reorganize your entire life around that new impression. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether you deserve what you're claiming. It simply accepts the dominant mental atmosphere you create and goes to work making it real in your experience. I once knew a woman who came to me utterly convinced she would never find meaningful work. She had been unemployed for 2 years. Every morning, she would say to herself, I can't find a job. Nobody wants to hire me. I'm too old, too inexperienced, too something. And her subconscious mind said, yes, that's true, and proceeded to prove her right at every turn. I asked her a simple question. If you were already employed in the perfect position, how would you feel right now? She paused. Then she said, I'd feel relieved, grateful, confident, like I finally had a place where I belonged. Then feel that now, I told her. Not when you get the job. Now, before any evidence appears. She looked at me as though I'd lost my mind, but she agreed to try. Every night before sleep, she would imagine receiving a phone call offering her the ideal position. She would feel the relief flooding her body. She would hear herself saying, yes, I accept. She would imagine telling her family the good news. She felt it all as vividly as possible, and then she drifted off to sleep in that state of fulfilled desire. Within 3 weeks, a former colleague reached out to her completely unexpectedly. A new department was forming. They needed someone with her exact background. Would she be interested? She interviewed. She was offered the position. She accepted. Was this coincidence? Was this luck? No. This was the subconscious mind responding to a new impression, a new command, a new belief that had been planted with emotional conviction. You see, your subconscious is like a faithful servant. It takes orders, but it only takes orders that come with feeling. A half-hearted wish does nothing. A desperate plea often reinforces the very lack you're trying to escape. But a calm, assured feeling of already being what you wish to be, that penetrates deeply, that reorganizes your world. And here's something most people miss entirely. Your subconscious doesn't only work on your own thoughts and feelings. It connects with the subconscious mind of others. It influences circumstances. It arranges meetings. It opens doors that logic says should remain closed. And here's what most people miss. The subconscious doesn't work on your schedule. It works on divine timing. You plant the seed today, and you might see the harvest tomorrow, or next month, or next year. But the seed is always growing beneath the surface, even when you can't see it. I've watched people give up one day before their miracle arrived. They impressed their desire on the subconscious for weeks, maybe months. They were doing everything right, visualizing, feeling, believing. Then doubt crept in. It's not working, they said. This is nonsense. I'm wasting my time. So, they stopped. They withdrew their faith. And the subconscious, which had been arranging circumstances, lining up events, preparing their good, it all dissolved. Not because it wasn't real, but because they pulled the plug before the work was complete. You wouldn't plant a seed in your garden, then dig it up every few days to check if it's growing. That would kill it. Yet this is exactly what people do with their mental seeds. They plant desire through visualization, then dig it up with worry. They water it with faith one day, then poison it with doubt the next. The subconscious needs consistency. It needs your unwavering conviction that what you've impressed upon it is already done. Not will be done is done, because in the realm of consciousness, in the invisible world where all creation begins, it is already complete. Let me tell you about a woman I knew who understood this principle deeply. She was a widow with 3 young children, facing eviction. She had no job, no savings, and no apparent way out. Every logical voice around her said, "You're finished. Accept defeat." But she didn't. Every night before sleep, she would visualize herself and her children in a beautiful, safe home. She would feel the relief, the gratitude, the peace. She impressed this image on her subconscious with absolute faith, even as the eviction notice sat on her kitchen table. 2 days before she was to be put out on the street, she received a phone call. A distant relative she hadn't heard from in 15 years had passed away and left her a small house mortgage-free. The timing was miraculous. The circumstances were impossible to predict. But her subconscious mind had found a way. This is how it works when you truly believe. Now, I want you to understand something crucial about the language of the subconscious. Your subconscious mind accepts what you impress upon it. It doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply accepts and acts upon your beliefs. This is why worry is so dangerous. When you worry, you're praying for what you don't want. You're impressing negative images upon your subconscious mind with emotion and repetition. And your subconscious, being impersonal, will work just as hard to bring your fears into reality as it would to manifest your desires. I've seen this countless times. A man worries constantly about losing his job. He thinks about it morning and night. He imagines the scene of being called into his supervisor's office. He feels the emotions of rejection and failure. And then, inevitably, he creates the very situation he feared, not because fate was against him, but because he gave his subconscious mind a blueprint for failure. The reverse is equally true. When you persistently hold an image of health, success, and prosperity in your mind, when you feel the reality of these conditions as already existing, your subconscious must manifest them. It has no choice. It's the law. Let me tell you about a businessman I counseled years ago. His company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Creditors were calling, employees were anxious. The logical, conscious mind saw only disaster ahead. But this man understood the principle I'm sharing with you now. Every night before sleep, he would enter into a drowsy, relaxed state. In that receptive condition, he would imagine his accountant showing him the books with a healthy balance. He would feel the handshake of a new investor. He would see himself signing contracts for major deals. He did this faithfully for 30 days. not with desperation, but with quiet confidence. He knew that his subconscious mind was now working on the problem, arranging circumstances, attracting the right people, creating opportunities that his conscious mind couldn't possibly orchestrate. Within 40 days, seemingly out of nowhere, he received a phone call from an investor he'd met years earlier at a conference. This investor had been thinking about him and felt compelled to reach out. A partnership formed. The business not only survived but thrived. Coincidence? Random luck? No, this was the law in action. Now, let me be crystal clear about something that trips people up constantly. They hear about the law of assumption, about mental states, about consciousness creating reality, and they think it's all abstract philosophy, something to ponder while sipping tea. No, this is engineering. This is mechanics. This is as practical as building a bridge or wiring a house. Your subconscious mind operates on one fundamental principle. It accepts what you impress upon it. It doesn't judge. It doesn't argue. It doesn't say, well, that's not realistic, or who do you think you are? It simply receives the impression and begins the process of externalization. That's its job. That's its only job. Think of it like this. Your subconscious is like soil. Rich, fertile, infinitely productive soil. Now, that soil doesn't care what seed you plant. You plant wheat, it grows wheat. You plant thorns, it grows thorns. You plant poison ivy, that's exactly what you'll harvest. The soil isn't moral, it isn't selective, it's neutral, it's law. Your thoughts are seeds. Every single thought you entertain, every mental picture you hold, every assumption you make about yourself and your world, these are seeds going into that soil. And the harvest? The harvest is your life, your circumstances, your relationships, your bank account, your health. Everything you see around you is the crop you planted, whether you did it consciously or unconsciously. Most people are unconscious gardeners. They're scattering seeds everywhere, randomly, carelessly. A seed of fear here, a seed of resentment there. Oh, a few seeds of hope occasionally, but then immediately followed by a whole handful of doubt. And they wonder why their garden is a mess. They wonder why weeds are choking out everything else. But I don't want these weeds, they cry. Of course you don't. But you planted them. Maybe not deliberately. Maybe you didn't even know what you were doing. But the law doesn't care about ignorance. Gravity doesn't suspend itself because you didn't know about it. And the law of consciousness doesn't stop operating because you weren't paying attention. Here's what I want you to understand. You are gardening right now. This very moment. You're either planting deliberately or you're planting by default. There is no neutral. There is no pause button. Your consciousness is always active, always impressing, always creating. And this is why so many people feel stuck in patterns they consciously want to escape. They decide, I'm going to be confident today. I'm going to stop worrying about money. I'm going to believe in myself. And for a few hours, maybe even a few days, they hold that thought. But underneath, running silently in the background, are the habitual impressions they've been making for years. The doubt, the fear, the sense of unworthiness. It's like trying to drive north while your autopilot is set for south. You can grip the wheel and force it for a while, but the moment you relax, the moment you stop consciously directing, you drift right back to the programmed destination. This is not a flaw in you. This is simply how the law works. Your subconscious doesn't judge the quality of the impressions you give it. It doesn't say, oh, this fear is irrational, so I'll ignore it. It accepts everything. It's perfectly obedient. And it will faithfully reproduce whatever you've been feeding it most consistently. Now here's the crucial distinction that changes everything. You don't need to fight the old impressions. You don't need to dig them up, analyze them, understand where they came from, or battle them into submission. That approach keeps you focused on the very thing you're trying to leave behind. Instead, you simply begin making new impressions, consistently, persistently, with feeling. Every time you return to your desired state in imagination, every time you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, you are making a deposit into your subconscious. At first, these deposits might seem small compared to the accumulated weight of old patterns, but they compound, they build, and there comes a tipping point where the new impression becomes dominant. Think of it like changing the course of a river. You don't stand in the water and push against the current. You dig a new channel. At first, only a trickle flows through. But as you deepen that channel, more and more water follows, until eventually the entire river has shifted its path. The old riverbed dries up, not because you fought the water, but because you gave it a new direction. This is the patience and persistence required. This is why I say you must persist in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Not because the law is slow or reluctant, but because you are retraining the most powerful creative force in your life, your own consciousness. Now, let me address something that troubles many sincere students of this work. They come to me and say, Dr. Murphy, I have affirmed, I have visualized, I have done everything you instructed, yet nothing has changed. My circumstances remain the same. The money hasn't come, the healing hasn't occurred, the relationship hasn't transformed. And I ask them a simple question. While you were affirming your good, what were you feeling? There is often a long silence. Then the truth emerges. Well, I was worried it wouldn't work. I was anxious about my bills. I kept checking my bank account every hour. I kept looking at the symptoms. I kept thinking about how long it was taking. You see, here is the subtle error that defeats so many. They are affirming one thing with their lips, while simultaneously impressing the opposite upon their subconscious with their dominant feeling. The subconscious mind does not respond to your words. It responds to your feeling, your conviction, your predominant mental attitude. You can say, I am wealthy 1,000 times a day, but if each time you say it you feel the pang of lack, if you immediately think, who am I kidding? If you speak the words while feeling poor, then you are not impressing wealth upon your subconscious. You are actually reinforcing poverty, because the feeling is the secret. The feeling is the language your subconscious understands. This is why I have always emphasized that you must feel yourself into the state of your wish fulfilled. Not merely think about it. Not merely visualize it from a distance. You must wear the feeling of the wish fulfilled like a comfortable garment. You must inhabit it. You must become it in consciousness before it can manifest in your world. When you truly accept something in consciousness, there is a quality of naturalness about it. There is ease. There is rest. You are not anxiously looking over your shoulder wondering if it will happen. You know it is done. You may not know when or how the manifestation will appear, but you know that in consciousness it is already accomplished, and that is the only place where creation truly occurs. Think of it this way. When you know something absolutely, you don't keep checking to verify it. If I tell you your name, you don't spend the day questioning whether that is really your name. You know it. You rest in that knowledge. This is the quality of acceptance I am speaking of. And when you accept this truth, when you truly accept it, something miraculous happens. The struggle ceases. The internal warfare comes to an end. You stop being at odds with yourself, stop fighting against your own nature, and you begin to flow with the current of life itself. I have counseled men and women who spent years, decades even, in a state of perpetual conflict. They wanted prosperity but felt guilty for desiring it. They sought love but believed themselves unworthy of receiving it. They dreamed of health but carried the conviction that suffering was their lot in life. Every affirmation they spoke was met with an internal contradiction. Every prayer was undermined by doubt. They were like a man rowing a boat with one oar pulling forward and the other pulling backward, exhausting himself while remaining stationary. The breakthrough came only when they learned to accept. Not to force, not to demand, not to beg, but to accept. Consider the farmer again. After he plants his seed, he does not dig it up each morning to check its progress. He does not stand in his field and demand that the corn grow faster. He does not lose sleep wondering if the earth knows what to do. He accepts that the law of growth is at work. He waters, he tends, he removes the weeds, but the growth itself, that he leaves to the law. You must do the same with your desires. Once you have planted the seed in your subconscious mind through clear, feeling-filled imagination, you must accept that the law is now at work. The how is not your concern. The when is not your burden. Your task is simply to maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled and to accept that what you have decreed in consciousness must, by law, manifest in your world. I hear the objection, but Dr. Murphy, I do accept. I really do. And yet nothing changes. When I investigate such cases, I invariably find that what they call acceptance is actually wishful thinking mixed with anxiety. True acceptance has no anxiety in it, none whatsoever. Anxiety is evidence that you are still trying to make it happen through external means, that you haven't truly relinquished it to the law. Think of it this way. When you mail a letter, do you follow the postal carrier to ensure he delivers it? Do you check every sorting facility along the route? Of course not. You drop it in the mailbox and accept that the postal system will handle the rest. You have that kind of trust in human institutions, yet you struggle to have the same trust in the infinite intelligence that governs the entire universe. This lack of trust reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about how the subconscious mind works. When you drop that prayer request into your mental mailbox, you don't need to dig it back up every 5 minutes to check if it's still there. You don't need to worry about whether it got lost along the way. You don't need to supervise the delivery process. The moment you impressed your desire upon your subconscious with feeling and conviction, the creative forces of the universe began working on your behalf. Think about a farmer planting seeds. After he places those seeds in the ground and covers them with soil, does he dig them up daily to see if they're growing? Does he stand over the field anxiously wondering if the process is working? Of course not. He trusts in the natural laws that govern growth. He waters the ground, ensures adequate sunlight, and then he waits with confident expectation. He knows that beneath the surface, invisible to his eyes, those seeds are responding to natural principles that have never failed since the beginning of time. Your mental seeds work exactly the same way. Once planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind, they immediately begin to grow according to spiritual law. But if you keep digging them up with doubt, if you keep flooding them with anxiety, if you keep examining them with worry, you disturb the natural growth process. You must plant your seed idea, water it with faith, and then allow the creative intelligence within you to bring it to fruition. I've watched people sabotage their own demonstrations time and time again through this exact mistake. They pray beautifully, with real feeling and conviction. They plant the perfect seed, but then, within hours, they're back to worrying. They're telling their friends how impossible their situation is. They're mentally rehearsing failure. They're digging up their prayer to inspect whether it's working. And every time they dig it up, every time they check on it, every time they announce to the world that it hasn't happened yet, they're planting a new seed of doubt. They're watering the garden of failure. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot pray for prosperity while mentally rehearsing poverty. You cannot claim health while constantly monitoring your symptoms with fear. You cannot ask for a relationship while telling everyone how lonely and unlovable you are. The subconscious mind doesn't care about what you consciously want. It only responds to what you habitually think and feel. It's not impressed by the 5 minutes you spent visualizing success if you spend the other 23 hours and 55 minutes expecting failure. This is why Jesus said, when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen, the inner chamber, the secret place, the privacy of your own consciousness. Not broadcasting your prayer to everyone who will listen, not seeking validation or sympathy from the outer world, because when you tell everyone what you're praying for, you invite their doubt into your consciousness. When you share your dream with skeptics, you absorb their disbelief. When you announce your intention before it's manifest, you open yourself to the negative suggestions of others. Guard your mental garden like it's sacred ground, because it is. What you're planting in consciousness is more real than what exists in the physical world right now. Your assumption, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Your habitual thinking will crystallize into experience. But you must protect it in its infancy. You must shield it from the frost of doubt and the weeds of negative conversation. You must nurture it in silence until it's strong enough to withstand the skepticism of the world. I've watched people sabotage their own prayers by making them public too soon. They announce they're starting a business, and immediately 10 people tell them why it won't work. They share that they're working on their health, and suddenly everyone becomes a medical expert explaining their limitations. The world is full of well-meaning people who will gladly water your garden with poison. They'll tell you to be realistic. They'll remind you of past failures. They'll list all the reasons why your prayer can't be answered. And if you're not vigilant, you'll accept their suggestions as your own thoughts. But here's what you must understand. Asterisk, asterisk, those negative voices have no power except the power you give them, asterisk, asterisk. When someone says, you'll never get that job, they're not stating a fact, they're making a suggestion. And you, being a sovereign mental being, have the absolute right to reject that suggestion. I learned this lesson powerfully early in my career. A well-meaning colleague told me, Murphy, you're dreaming too big. People like us don't write best-selling books. We don't reach millions. Be content with what you have. His words hung in the air like a dark cloud, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt them seeping into my consciousness. But then I remembered the fundamental principle, asterisk, asterisk, I am the gatekeeper of my own mind, asterisk, asterisk. I said to myself, silently but firmly, I reject that suggestion completely. My subconscious mind is now bringing my books to millions of readers worldwide. I didn't argue with him. I didn't defend myself. I simply refused mental entrance to his negative suggestion and replaced it immediately with my own constructive affirmation. Within 2 years, my books were being translated into multiple languages and reaching audiences I had never imagined possible. Was my colleague trying to hurt me? No. He was simply projecting his own limitations onto me, but I refused to accept them as mine. This is the vigilance I'm asking you to develop. Asterisk, asterisk, you cannot stop people from making negative suggestions, but you can absolutely stop those suggestions from taking root in your subconscious mind, asterisk, asterisk. Think of your mind as a garden. Negative suggestions are like weed seeds constantly being blown over the fence by wind, by other people's fears, doubts, and limitations. If you're not vigilant, those seeds will land in the fertile soil of your subconscious and grow into the very limitations you're trying to overcome. But when you're watchful, when you're alert, you can recognize these seeds the moment they arrive and refuse them entry. You don't have to plant every seed that lands at your feet. Asterisk, asterisk, you have the power of selection, asterisk, asterisk. You have the power of rejection. And that power of selection is one of the most profound gifts you possess. You are not a passive receiver of every thought, every suggestion, every fear that the world throws at you. You are an active gardener of your own consciousness. Think about this for a moment. Every day, you're bombarded with thousands of impressions. The news tells you the world is falling apart. Your neighbor complains about the economy. A friend shares their anxiety about the future. Social media floods you with images of what you supposedly lack. And if you're not careful, if you're not vigilant, all of these seeds get planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. But here's what I want you to understand. Asterisk, asterisk, you are the gatekeeper, asterisk, asterisk. You stand at the entrance to your own mind, and you get to decide what enters and what doesn't. This isn't about denial. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. This is about conscious, deliberate selection of what you allow to take root in your inner world. When someone speaks words of limitation over your life, you don't have to accept them. When fear knocks at your door dressed as concern, you don't have to invite it in for tea. When doubt whispers that you're not capable, you don't have to give it a chair at your mental table. You see, most people go through life with their mental doors wide open, letting everything and everyone march right into their consciousness. They wonder why they feel overwhelmed, anxious, and stuck. It's because they've allowed their inner garden to become overgrown with weeds they never consciously chose to plant. I knew a woman who decided to fast from negativity for 30 days. No complaining, no negative news, no toxic conversations. At first, she felt like she was missing out, like she was being irresponsible by not staying informed about every tragedy and crisis. But after a week, something remarkable happened. Her mind became clearer, her energy increased. Solutions to problems that had plagued her for months suddenly appeared. Why? Because she had cleaned out her mental garden. She had made space for creativity, inspiration, and divine guidance to take root. This is the practice of mental hygiene. Just as you wouldn't let garbage pile up in your home, you shouldn't let mental garbage accumulate in your consciousness. Every day, set aside time to examine your thoughts. When you catch yourself dwelling on fear, resentment, or limitation, stop immediately. Don't judge yourself harshly, simply recognize the thought and replace it with its opposite. If you find yourself thinking, I can't afford this, immediately substitute, abundance flows to me easily and naturally. If the thought arises, I'm not good enough, replace it with, I am a perfect expression of divine intelligence. This isn't denial. This is discipline. You're training your mind the way an athlete trains their body. At first, it feels awkward and unnatural. Your old patterns will resist, but with consistent practice, your new thoughts become automatic. Your consciousness becomes purified, receptive, and powerful. I've seen individuals transform their entire lives through this single practice. One man I knew struggled with chronic financial problems. When we examined his mental atmosphere, we discovered he constantly rehearsed poverty in his mind. I'll never get ahead, he'd think. Money always slips through my fingers. These thoughts were seeds he planted daily in his subconscious, and they yielded exactly the harvest he didn't want. I taught him the practice of mental substitution. Every time a thought of lack appeared, he immediately replaced it with affirmation of abundance. Within months, opportunities began appearing, a better job, an unexpected inheritance. Not because the universe suddenly favored him, but because his consciousness had changed frequency. He was now broadcasting prosperity instead of poverty. The same principle applies to health. Many people unknowingly maintain illness through constant worry about their bodies. They catalog symptoms, predict future suffering, and identify themselves with disease. I always catch colds, they say. My back always goes out. These statements are commands to the subconscious mind, instructions for maintaining exactly what they claim to despise. Begin now to speak only of the health you desire, never of the sickness you fear. Your words have creative power. They're not just sounds, they're forces that shape your experience. This brings us to a crucial understanding. Your habitual thinking creates what I call your mental equivalent. Whatever you can accept mentally, you can experience physically. If you cannot imagine yourself prosperous, you cannot become prosperous. If you cannot mentally accept perfect health, your body will reflect your limited consciousness. Think of your mind like a garden. You wouldn't plant seeds of disease and expect flowers of health to bloom. You wouldn't scatter seeds of poverty and anticipate a harvest of abundance. Yet this is precisely what millions do every single day through their habitual thinking patterns. Your subconscious mind accepts what you genuinely feel to be true. It doesn't argue, it doesn't debate. It simply accepts and manifests. When you say, "I can't afford that," your subconscious hears this as an instruction and works tirelessly to maintain that reality. When you declare, "I never get what I want," you've just given your subconscious mind its marching orders. But here's the beautiful truth. You can change this pattern right now. This very moment. I once counseled a woman who came to me with chronic back pain that had persisted for years. Doctors found nothing structurally wrong. They prescribed medication after medication, yet nothing provided lasting relief. When we explored her inner world, we discovered something profound. She had been carrying the weight of her family's problems on her shoulders for decades. Her own words were, "I carry everything for everyone." Her body was simply literalizing her mental conviction. Her back hurt because she believed she was carrying an impossible burden. Once she recognized this pattern and began affirming, "I release all burdens that are not mine to carry. Divine intelligence manages all things perfectly." Her pain began to dissolve. Within weeks, she was completely free of the suffering that had dominated her life. The body cannot contradict the mind for long. Your physical form is the servant of your mental convictions. Every cell, every organ, every system responds to the directions given by your habitual thoughts and feelings. This is why I emphasize the importance of monitoring your inner dialogue. What are you saying to yourself in those quiet moments? What stories are you telling about your limitations? These internal narratives are not idle chatter, they are commands being sent to the most powerful creative force you possess. Let me share something that transformed my understanding of this power. I once worked with a businessman who came to me after losing everything: his company, his savings, his confidence. When I asked him to describe his situation, his exact words were, "I'm finished. I'm a failure. Nothing ever works out for me." I stopped him right there. "Listen to yourself," I said. "Every time you speak those words, you're placing an order with your subconscious mind. And your subconscious is faithful, it will deliver exactly what you've requested." We spent weeks reprogramming his internal dialogue. Instead of, "I'm finished," he learned to say, "I am resilient and resourceful." Instead of, "Nothing works out," he affirmed, "Solutions and opportunities flow to me naturally." Within 6 months, he had not only rebuilt his business, but exceeded his previous success. The transformation wasn't in his circumstances, it was in his words. His external reality simply rearranged itself to match his internal declarations. This is the mechanics of creation, and it operates with mathematical precision. Your subconscious mind cannot reject what you consistently claim as truth. It has no filter for sarcasm or irony. When you say, "I'm so stupid," even as a joke, your subconscious accepts it as instruction. When you declare, I never have enough money, your deeper mind begins organizing your reality to prove you right. Understanding this should make you extremely vigilant about your speech, not from a place of fear, but from a place of power. You are not a victim of circumstance, you are a broadcaster of instructions. Every statement you make about yourself is being heard and acted upon by forces within you that have unlimited creative capacity. Here's what I want you to grasp. Your subconscious mind is completely neutral. It doesn't judge whether your statements are beneficial or harmful. It simply accepts them as directives and goes to work making them manifest. This is why two people can experience the same setback. One emerges stronger, the other collapses. The difference is entirely in what they tell themselves about the experience. The person who says, "This is teaching me valuable lessons," activates different creative forces than the person who says, "This always happens to me." Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Wait, let me check if that's actually true." It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it and begins to manifest conditions that match your habitual thinking. This is why awareness of your inner dialogue is not optional, it is foundational to everything you will ever create or become. I once counseled a woman who had been passed over for promotion 3 times in 5 years. She came to me bitter, convinced the system was rigged against her. When I asked her to describe how she felt walking into work each morning, she said, "Like I'm invisible. Like nothing I do matters." I said, "Then that is precisely what you're instructing your subconscious to create more experiences of being overlooked." She was startled. She had never considered that her feelings were instructions, that her repeated thought patterns were orders being faithfully executed by the creative mechanism within her. We began working on changing her inner conversation. Instead of rehearsing grievances, she started affirming, "I am recognized and valued. My contributions are seen and appreciated. I am advancing in my career with ease and joy." She resisted. At first it felt false, like lying to herself. But I explained that she had been lying to herself all along, just in the opposite direction. Her feelings of invisibility were not facts, they were interpretations she had accepted as truth. Why not choose an interpretation that serves your future rather than one that imprisons you in past disappointments? Within 4 months, she was offered a position she hadn't even applied for in a different department, with a significant increase in responsibility and compensation. The external circumstances hadn't magically shifted. She had shifted. And when she shifted, the world around her rearranged itself to match her new inner conviction. Now, some of you may be wondering, if this is all so simple, why don't more people experience these kinds of transformations? The answer is twofold. First, most people don't realize they're already using this law. They're manifesting by default, not by design. They're broadcasting worry, fear, lack, and limitation, and then wondering why life feels so hard. Second, there's a gap between intellectual understanding and experiential knowing. You can read 100 books about swimming, but until you get in the water, you won't truly know what it feels like to float. This is why practice matters. Daily practice. Not once in a while prayer when you're desperate, not sporadic visualization when you remember, but consistent, deliberate alignment with the truth of who you are and what you desire. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you want to hear a specific station, you have to dial into that frequency. You can't tune into 98.5 and expect to hear what's broadcasting on 101.3. The programs don't blend. You get what you tune into. Your subconscious mind works the same way. It's always tuned in, always receiving, always creating based on the signal you're sending. So the question becomes, what frequency are you broadcasting right now? Are you tuned into lack or abundance? Fear or faith? Resentment or gratitude? And here's the beautiful part: you get to choose. In every single moment, you get to choose again. You're not stuck with yesterday's frequency. You're not locked into last year's beliefs. You can shift right now, in this very moment, by changing the inner conversation. Let me give you one more example before we bring this all together. There was a man who came to me years ago. He'd been unemployed for months. Everywhere he went, he was met with rejection. His confidence was shattered. He felt invisible, overlooked, unworthy. I asked him a simple question. When you walk into an interview, what are you saying to yourself? He paused, then admitted, I'm thinking they probably won't hire me. I'm thinking I don't have enough experience. I'm thinking I'm wasting their time. There it was, the inner blueprint, the subconscious script running on repeat. I told him, you're not being rejected by them. You're rejecting yourself before you even sit down. You've already decided the outcome. So, I said to him, here's what we're going to do. Every night before you sleep, you're going to see yourself walking into that interview room with confidence. You're going to feel the handshake. You're going to hear yourself speaking clearly and intelligently. You're going to see their faces responding positively. And you're going to repeat, I am confident, I am capable, I am exactly what they're looking for. He looked skeptical. That's it? Just imagination? Just imagination? I said. My friend, imagination is the workshop of God. It's where everything in this world was created before it became physical. Every building, every invention, every relationship started as an image in someone's mind. He agreed to try it. Within 3 weeks, he came back to me with a job offer. Not just any job, a position better than the ones he'd been rejected from. And you know what he told me? The strangest thing happened. I walked into that interview, and I wasn't nervous. It felt like I'd already been there, like I was just going through the motions of something that had already happened. That's because, in his subconscious mind, it had already happened. He had rehearsed it so many times in his imagination that when the actual moment came, his mind simply recognized it as familiar territory. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Joseph, I've tried affirmations. I've tried visualization, it didn't work. Let me tell you why. You were doing it mechanically. You were saying the words without feeling. You were picturing the scene without believing. The subconscious mind doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to feeling. It responds to conviction. It responds to the emotional intensity behind your mental images. If you're affirming abundance while feeling poor, you're impressing poverty on your subconscious. If you're visualizing success while feeling like a failure, you're programming failure into your mental computer. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is what gives your mental images the power to manifest. When you can think of your desire and feel the way you would feel if it were already accomplished, that's when transformation happens. That's when the subconscious accepts it as real and begins to organize all the forces of your being to make it so. I knew a woman who had been trying to sell her house for 2 years. Every day, she would look at it and think about how difficult it was to sell, how the market was bad, how nobody wanted it. She was programming failure. I stopped her right there. Every time you say that, you're rejecting your own gift before you even give it a chance. You're building a wall between you and your desire. We spent the next hour rewriting her mental script. Instead of, the market is bad, she learned to say, the right buyer is being prepared for my home right now. Instead of nobody wants it, she affirmed, my home is moving to its perfect new owner with grace and ease. Within 2 weeks, she had 3 offers. Within a month, she sold it at asking price. The shift wasn't in the market. The market didn't change. The shift was in her consciousness. She stopped being a broadcaster of defeat and became a broadcaster of success. Your words are the blueprint your subconscious follows. Every declaration you make is an instruction to the creative power within you. When you say, I can't afford it, you're giving your subconscious a command to maintain that condition. When you say, I'm always tired, you're programming fatigue into your nervous system. But when you deliberately choose your words, when you speak from the end result you desire, you reprogram the entire system. This is why affirmations work, not because they're magic spells, but because they're conscious instructions to your subconscious mind. They interrupt the old pattern and install a new one. The man who says, I am healthy, strong, and vibrant is doing something profoundly scientific. He's impressing a new pattern onto his subconscious, and his subconscious will work tirelessly to make that pattern a physical reality. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined with emotion. When you affirm with feeling, your entire nervous system responds as if it's already true. This is the secret the ancient teachers knew. The tongue has the power of life and death. They weren't being poetic, they were stating a psychological law. You can transform your entire life by transforming your vocabulary. Stop saying I'm trying, say I am. Stop saying I hope, say I know. Stop saying someday, say now. Watch your words for 1 week. Notice how often you contradict your desires with casual speech. Notice how often you affirm limitation, lack, and difficulty. Then begin the practice of conscious speech. Speak only what you wish to experience. Describe your life as you want it to be, not as it appears to be. When you say, I never have enough money, you are speaking your future into existence. When you declare, I always get sick in winter, you are commanding your subconscious to manifest illness. Your words are not mere descriptions, they are prescriptions for your future experience. I once counseled a woman who complained constantly about her failing health. Every conversation was punctuated with organ recitals, detailed descriptions of her aches, pains, and predicted catastrophes. I asked her a simple question. If your subconscious mind were an obedient servant, what exactly have you been ordering it to create? She fell silent. She had never considered that her words were instructions, not observations. From that day forward, she changed her vocabulary. Instead of, "I'm getting worse," she said, "I am improving daily." Instead of, "This always happens to me," she declared, "Good things flow to me naturally." Within weeks, her entire experience shifted. Her body responded to the new command she had given it. This is not positive thinking in the superficial sense. This is scientific use of the creative power you possess. You are not pretending things are different, you are impressing upon the subconscious the pattern you wish to see materialized. Let me make this abundantly clear. Your subconscious accepts what you feel to be true. It does not argue or question. It simply accepts and creates. When you speak with conviction, with feeling, with the assumption that your words are true, your subconscious goes to work immediately to make them so. I am not suggesting you deny observable facts. If you are ill, you acknowledge the condition, but you do not dwell upon it. You do not give it power through repetitive, emotionalized declarations. Instead, you turn your attention to the desired state. You speak of health, you imagine health, you feel the reality of health, and your subconscious, being entirely amenable to suggestion, begins to restore your body to wholeness. The same principle applies to every area of your life. In relationships, speak words of harmony and love. In finances, speak words of abundance and prosperity. In your career, speak words of success and recognition. You are not hoping these things will happen, you are commanding them into being through the authority of your own consciousness. Begin today. Monitor every word that leaves your lips. Catch yourself when you are about to speak limitation, and consciously replace it with a statement of your desired reality. This is not dishonesty, this is mastery. You are choosing to align your speech with your intention rather than with your temporary circumstances.